want you to write a list of all of the times in your life when you felt like a badass, whether it be a big business moment, maybe when you overcame an illness or something, or you were really scared to do something and you went and you did it. You're like, oh, I did it. Whenever you're feeling like an imposter, you're not feeling good enough, or like, is this shit? Is this not good? I want you to take out your badass list and I want you to read it out loud as if you're reading about somebody else. You're reading about this person and all of the fabulous things that this person has done. And then I want you to be really impressed with that person. Because I bet you, if you were to ask, is this person worthy of doing the thing that I'm afraid to do right now? You would say, oh, yeah, this person's totally worthy, of course. And then remember that that person is you.
Well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show, where in this episode, I'm talking to my friend Jen Gottlieb, who has a book that just came out a couple of days ago called Be Seen, Find Your Voice, Build Your Brand, Live Your Dream. So if you don't know who Jen is, I would highly recommend following her on Instagram. She is very fiery and inspiring, but she's a powerhouse entrepreneur. She is an international speaker. She has a podcast called I Dare You. And this is her first book, but she also has, she's the co-founder of a company called Super Connector Media, which is training and events and PR education company, basically, with her husband, Chris Winfield. Jen is someone who is an expert at helping you be seen. And what I really liked about this book is that she shares her story of, even though she was visible because she was on a show on MTV for many years, she wasn't really being seen in an authentic way. So we really do break it down and make the distinction in this interview of what are the differences between those two things. And then she teaches us about the confidence continuum. There's a whole bunch of really juicy stuff in this episode with Jen Gottlieb. I hope that you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed interviewing her. I am so excited to welcome Jen Gottlieb to the Terri Cole Show. Hi, Jen.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. Now we're talking about all the things, and in particular, because you just dropped your very first book called Be Seen, and I love this book and I love your story. The subtitle, you guys, is Find Your Voice, Build Your Brand, Live Your Dream. So great. And actually forward done by one of our mutual friends, Gabby Bernstein. Very nice. So I want to talk about this whole notion of being seen. And I love your whole story of, the question is, what does it mean to be truly seen? And for you, because you have this great story of, like, you were struggling, you were being seen, but as an actress and as a performer, but still struggling to be seen. So tell us.
Yeah, I couldn't write a book about being seen if it didn't start off with seeing you for who you really are. I spent the majority of my life playing characters and being so seen, wanting to be seen by everybody. But it was like I was being seen as a version of myself that I thought I needed to be, whether it was for the job that I was hired to do or the person that I needed to be for everybody else to like me, to appreciate me, to have me in their cool kid group when I was in middle school, or to fit in with my ex-boyfriend's hedge fund trader friends, right? And I would just became this chameleon that would morph and form into the version of myself that I needed to be in order to feel love and acceptance, and in order to feel that false version of being seen. And I realized after a while of doing that, and after shit hit the fan and everything kind of came crumbling down, that I was doing it in the wrong way. And when you read the book, obviously, Terri, you're referring to a specific time in my life when I was on a TV show all about heavy metal music for 5 years. I don't like heavy metal music, but I found myself with this job. I was an actress. I was making the rounds. I was auditioning my face off, trying to get a gig. And I got a gig on a talk show. And the problem with this was it was like, I wasn't really playing a character where I was reading lines. Like, I didn't have a different name. I was me. I was Jen, but I was heavy metal Jen. And I was like the hot chick on the show. My title on the show was actually Miss Box of Junk. That was my name. It said it on my dressing room, Miss Box of Junk. And my job was to carry this like box of prizes. And there was an in-studio audience. And whenever one of the in-studio audience members won something, they would put their hand inside my box and pick out a prize. And that was my entire gig. And at that time in my life, I was thrilled to have a job, and it's okay. I could play this part. I could wear the pleather leggings. I could make myself look like I was a heavy metal girl. But what ended up happening is life was kind of doing me. I wasn't being very intentional. And 5 years go by, and I've built this brand and this presence and this audience that was completely out of alignment from who I really was. And
Yep.
I'm sure you know this, Terry, more than anybody, that when you're living out of alignment in some area of your life, it seeps out everywhere. And I woke up one day, I'm like, Jen, who are you?
Right.
Who are you going to be if all this goes away?
Right.
Because this is not who you are. And that voice was screaming inside of me, and I was not listening to the voice. And I wasn't listening. And then suddenly the universe came in, stepped in. It's like, no more of this. I was in a toxic relationship. I was severely depressed. I had a horrible eating disorder. I was in it in this phase of my life of not being seen as who I really was. And the universe stepped in and was like, I'm going to take this away, but it's going to hurt. The show got canceled. The guy that I was dating left me for one of our friends, and I had to start over. And I had to figure it out. I was forced. Didn't happen overnight. You'll read all about it in the book. But that's really where the book starts. It's where the story starts, because I find that whether you are on a heavy metal talk show or you're an actor or whatever it is in your life, where you're just in your friends and family group and you've built this career and this life that everybody else wanted for you, and you're waking up one day and you're like, whoa, this is not what I want to be seen as. This is not me. We need to find that first, and we need to find who we really are in order to come out and be seen as who we're meant to be seen as in the world.
What I love about the book is that you guys, when you read it, you'll see it doesn't have to be you. Like, Jen is sharing this very painful experience in her life in the book, very specifically, and about the steps that she took. But if you're right now being like, am I living my authentic life? Is this what I want to be doing? It doesn't have to get to that point. Like, and you know, many of us who do what we do have had like dark nights of the soul, we would call it, where you literally can't keep doing what you're doing. Like you said, the universe took it away, took away the toxic guy. Thank you, but still painful all at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And then starting from, who am I? So for you, what was it like, right? Transitioning, because then, you know, you have had a very successful second, third, fourth, fifth acts in your life. And it's funny, I've always said for years that every woman has 5 amazing careers in her, right? Like, we don't just have to pick. And I love your story because you don't pick. You just keep picking, which is great.
Oh, I've had a lot of careers.
You sure have. But so for you, going from actress to fitness coach, right?
Mm-hmm,
Starting your media company that you have with your husband, Chris. First of all, how did that happen? And then for you, you talk in the book about the imposter syndrome. Let's get into that after you tell the story.
Yeah. So I wish that I could sit here and tell you that when I lost it all, I was like, okay, I'm going to clean up my life and start my second act. Let's go. And I was so empowered and I felt so confident and excited. I didn't. It actually got a lot worse before it got better. And I want to say that because I want to make sure everybody knows that it's okay to be in the suck. It's okay to not know. It's okay to not have it all figured out. When you've hit rock bottom, I think it's very easy on social media to watch other people's stories or to read about other people's stories and feel like you have to be resilient immediately in the moment. And I actually learned a lot in that moment of like severe not knowing, a severe uncertainty. The only thing that I was certain of, and I remember this because I would journal it, it was the only thing that I could write down in this dark place. So I found myself in this tiny little room with like an apartment with 6 other actors that lived there. And I had a window that faced a brick wall. And this was because I spent all my money. I was really irresponsible during that time. And I was like, okay, well, crap, I have to move out of my boyfriend's place and I have to find it. And this is where I was. And I'm like, this is, whoa. And I would just look out this little window at this wall and I would write down, one day I'll know why this happened. One day I'll know why this happened. One day I'll know. And I didn't know immediately. And I didn't know a week later. And I didn't know a month later. And during that time, actually, my mom came into the city and she was like, I can't deal with this anymore. We gotta take care of this. And my mom is really into personal development, personal growth. And she's actually a Reiki master. I was not into this then. I was not into the woo at all. Like, Mom, I'm good. Keep your stuff over there. It's okay. But she actually gave me this book, and it's a book by Louise Hay called You Can Heal Your Life. Very famous book full of affirmations. And my mom's very smart, and she knew that I was not going to read the book. So she photocopied one of the affirmations in the book that she wanted me to read. And she put it inside. And on the back of the affirmation, she wrote, Jenny, I hope you find yourself again. And she gave this book to me, and I open it and I pull out the photocopy. I'm like, Mom, you're so sneaky. You're so smart. And I took the affirmation and I put it on my refrigerator. And I said, okay, I'm not going to read this book right now because I'm not for it right now at this moment, but I can read this affirmation every day. I can just, that's the commitment that I'm going to make with myself. That's the only thing that I'm going to commit to right now, is just to read this thing every single day. And I don't know if it was the affirmation or if it was the commitment, doing that one thing every day that made me feel good about myself, that I checked off something, like I said I was going to do this and I followed through and I stuck with the commitment I made with myself, the act of sticking to that commitment. But each and every day after reading that affirmation, I felt a little better. And that would be the little 51%. My husband always would say to me, and now we teach it in the book, you don't have to necessarily believe 100% to change your life. I think that's a big misconception that we learn about on the internet, that it's like, you can't take action or do anything until you're at 100%. You got to get there 100%. We're never at 100%. You just got to believe a little bit more than you don't. I was at like 51% of belief when I would like take a step outside, go to Barnes and Noble, open up a personal development book, put on a podcast, start walking around, listening to people like Gabby Bernstein and people that inspired me, even just like reading books that Oprah had written and really diving in really, really deep and doing some big self-exploration. And it was a process. It was a process that wasn't just about thinking. It was about doing. And you'll read in the book all of the action steps that I took to build that personal training company. But what's really crazy is that affirmation was the Kickstarter. It was the first commitment that I made with myself. And it was the thing that got me out of my house, that started me off on this journey of figuring out who I was and starting my second chapter, my second life. And when we got the book deal with Hay House, it was just, I don't think, a coincidence that this book is being published by Louise. That Louise's company is bringing this book into the world. I think that it's a beautiful way that the dots connect.
It's a beautiful full circle kind of moment. What was the affirmation?
I couldn't tell you because it's very long. It's in the book behind me. You know what? I should probably go find that and post it on Instagram, but it's really long. It's the infinity of life where I am, all is whole and complete. One of those. It starts off like that.
Yeah,
if it was 3 sentences, I'd be able to tell you, but it was a full page.
Got it. But that's quite a commitment when you're not feeling like doing anything.
Yeah.
Right? Like actually doing it. I think what you're making a really great point, though, of it could be one or two things, depending on how people feel about the law of attraction. You write a lot about the law of attraction. A lot of your Instagram, those of you who are watching this, if you are listening to this, if you do not follow Jen, you need to, on very inspirational Instagram stuff. But there is something about, in my own experience, that what you hold in your mind the most, you bring into your lived experience.
Yes.
It happens. And even from the point of view, I had one of my friend's mothers was like weirdly obsessed with losing her luggage. Like it was the weirdest thing. Every time I saw her, I loved her. I spent a lot of time with her. She'd be like, I hope they don't lose my luggage again. Like, now I was like, Alice, here's the thing. You're someone who was afraid of them losing your luggage long before they started losing your luggage. You kept talking about it. I've never known anyone, Jen, in my life who's had their luggage lost more than this woman who's obsessed with getting her friggin' luggage lost, right? And I think in my life, of all the travel I've done, maybe once it happened. So there is something to like what you think about, you bring about, to a degree, not to be super, super simplistic. But I wanted to ask you, though, about, for you, you found your way into this company. You found that, creating this second chapter, let's say, before your third chapter, a media company. But even with that, and then even with the media company, and even with getting on all the stages that you get on, this was your desire to do so. But you talk about the imposter syndrome and having an experience of that. Yeah. So to share it with us, because I feel like I was literally, swear to God, just talking to my husband about the imposter syndrome today, and my mother, both, about how I'm writing my second book right now.
Yep.
And I know it's great, and I know it's a great idea, and I know it's original, and yet I can't, 4 times a day, I'm like, is this just shit? Is this just terrible? Does this make no sense? Are people going to know I don't know what the fuck I'm doing? Do you know what I mean? And my mother said, Terri, are you crazy? But anyway, so do please share with your experience.
Well, I love that we're having this moment together right now, because I feel it every day of my life, especially right now. right? Especially promoting a book. Even coming onto this podcast, I feel it a little bit. And this is such an important conversation because I think it's very, very easy for somebody listening to this thinking, Terri Cole never gets imposter syndrome, right? Like she's never gets it. Jen doesn't get that, right? I get to talk to a lot of really successful people, and I always ask them, my favorite question is, does imposter syndrome go away? Does fear go away? Does doubt go away? Like, no, doesn't matter what level you get to. We're always going to have it. It's about getting really good at doing things even though you feel that way. And the more that you practice moving through it, not moving around it, not punching it in the face and making it go away, but moving through it and having a good relationship with it and putting your arm around it and almost embracing it and saying, hey, come along for the ride with me. That is how we make things happen even though we might be feeling like an imposter. Imposter syndrome is one of the symptoms of fear in the book. I talk about 6 symptoms of fear. So sometimes we experience fear like as an actual physical, visceral feeling, like an anxiety attack or panic, or your heart is pounding and you're really afraid. And sometimes, especially for us entrepreneurs or creators or authors or people that are building brands or being seen or being out there, we very much experience fear as one of the symptoms. And it's very sneaky, and it sneaks in and disguises itself as things like imposter syndrome or perfectionism or analysis paralysis. Too many options. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what to choose. So I'm just not going to choose anything. Well, fear's job is to keep us from not doing anything. So if we feel like an imposter and we feel like we're not good enough to be somewhere or do something, fear has won because we're not going to go and do that thing. So it's so crazy because I wrote the book about being seen, and I'm literally like opening it up and reading my own advice right now because I am petrified. Birthing anything out into the world, no matter what level you're at, as long as you're stretching and growing and doing something you've never done before, you're going to feel not good enough. It's part of the human condition, and it's normal and it's okay. And in the 3rd chapter of the book, I write about my absolute favorite tool to move through imposter syndrome, and it's called the badass list.
Ooh, yes, love.
Yes. So I always want to give your listeners like real tangible takeaways. This is my favorite takeaway that there is, because I use it every single day. And I believe that one of the reasons that we experience imposter syndrome the most, especially in today's world with social media, is because we're spending way too much time looking at other people's highlight reels of their life and their business and their books and their podcasts. If you're in that industry, or maybe they're perfect children and they're perfectly lit, beautiful home that's clean all the time. We're in that corner of the room. You don't see the rest of it. You just see what they're putting online. And that's okay. People are posting highlight reels. That's what it's for. But we're not understanding and knowing when we're scrolling that it is just a highlight reel. And we're comparing our real life to the most curated, beautiful, perfect version of everybody else's chapter 20 outcome. And so we stop feeling like, oh, I'm good enough to write this book. Of course I'm the expert in this. And we start feeling like, man, I'm not as good as them. Like, whoa, like, because my life like kind of looks like this behind the scenes, when we don't really realize that that's probably not the real thing that's happening. There's got a lot more going on than just that. And so we spend all this time comparing, scrolling, looking, and we forget how wonderful and amazing we are. So sometimes we just need to remember. So the badass list, I'll teach it to you guys. You should go dive deep into the book, into chapter 3, because it goes into stories of how I created it and why it works and different examples. But I have it in my phone, and I want everybody that's listening to take out your phone, whatever kind of phone you have. There's got to be some kind of notes app in there. I want it in your phone so you always have it with you, because you never know when you're going to need it. And you're going to write a list. This is for you, Terri, right now, because I know you're in it. I want you to write a list of all of the times in your life when you felt like a badass. Whether it be a big business moment, like your first book, seeing it, in real life, or maybe when you launched your podcast, maybe when you met your husband, maybe when you overcame an illness or something, or you were really scared to do something and you went and you did it. You're like, oh, I did it. Any moment in your life where you're like, whoa, I was a badass. Like, yes. And here's the key. Whenever you're feeling like an imposter, you're not feeling good enough, or like, is this shit? Is this not good? I want you to take out your badass list, and I want you to read it out loud as if you're reading about somebody else. Somebody on the internet that you don't even know. You're reading about this person and all of the fabulous things that this person has done. And then I want you to be really impressed with that person. Because I bet you, if you were to ask, is this person worthy of doing the thing that I'm afraid to do right now? You would say, oh yeah, this person's totally worthy, of course. Like, what would you say to that person? And then remember that that person is you. You are that badass.
So good. And so good to sort of keep in the back pocket, especially when we are actively combating the imposter syndrome. And it's funny, Stephen Pressfield had said something. He's a friend of my husband's, and they just did a book together. And he talks about creating, and how we just have to do it for ourselves. And that, of course, we're always going to be afraid, as you're saying. But there was something that he wrote in his last book that reminded me kind of what you're saying, that this is an honor and a privilege. Like, we get to do this. And you always say in your interviews, Jen, you talk about, like, if we don't bring the thing that we're meant to bring, if we don't make the offer available, if we don't get on stages and talk about the things that we really do know the most about, and we're a caring person, that people are going to hear it from other people who may not have the quality or may not have the same way that you do it. And I think there's something really powerful in, and bringing this back to the badass list, is it's so easy, as you're saying, to compare ourselves negatively. And yet somehow, and I do think this has to do with negativity bias and all of this stuff, that we remember the bad things 5 times more readily than the good things. But I love the idea of bragging on ourselves the same way that I could brag about you, or I could brag about my sister with no problem. But
Yep.
why this like massive humility where we just feel like we don't want to threaten anyone, we don't want anyone to feel bad, to the degree that we are minimizing, which is what you're talking about in the book, we're minimizing sort of our own accomplishments and like forgetting that we're the one who actually did those things. And I also find that with my therapy clients, it's easy to think that everyone has the skills you have. You know what I mean? Where people would be like,
Totally.
right?
Yes, I think everybody can do it. It's like we're so close to our own stuff that
Yep.
it's not impressive anymore to us. We're so close to our own stories. That's why I talk all about storytelling in the end of the book too, because it's really important not to think about what you think your most powerful stories are, but to pay attention to what other people are leaning into. Because we really kind of just separate we're very close, and we judge our own stuff and our own selves and our own experiences a lot differently than how the world sees it, because we're so hard on ourselves. It's part of fear, it's part of doubt, it's part of being a human. Sure,
Right.
I mean, and so it's really interesting and fun if you were to go talk to somebody that loves you and you would to say, like, what are some of your favorite things about me? What would you say to someone if you were bragging about me? Right? That would probably be a really hard question to ask somebody. It would be for me. I'm saying it to you right now, and I'm like, oh, that would be a really uncomfortable conversation. But I'm sure that that person would say to you something that you would never say about yourself.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
we
And
see and
it's
perceive things different.
we do. And it's also so important, though, to slow down, which is what you're basically inviting us to do, long enough to not let that fear get a hold of us. Like, we can integrate it, is what you're saying, right? You said,
Mm-hmm.
put your arm around it. Be like, well, hello, since you're not going anywhere, we might as well be friends, as
Yeah.
opposed to trying to, what do they say? What you resist persists, which I think is actually true. There's another chapter in your book called How to Travel Back in Time. So what exactly does this mean, and why is it important to being seen?
Mm. Yeah, time travel is really powerful because that's the part about creation. That's the part about the law of attraction plus the law of action and manifestation, if you want to call it that. I don't really use that word that much in the book because I really like to look at manifesting in the law of attraction more like co-creating, taking
Mm,
action like a combination of visualization and feeling things as if you already have them and experiencing the life that you want as if it's already yours with taking action. And I have a lot of experience with that in my life. I have a lot. And when I look back, because people ask me questions about this all the time, how did you get to where you are? How did you create that moment? How did you find your husband? How did you create your dream role in the Broadway show? How did you get to
hmm
that stage? I'm like, all right, I need to really take this apart and put together like exactly how I did this for people. Because I think that when it comes to the law of attraction and manifesting, sometimes on the internet it gets a little bit of a bad rap because people think that all you need to do is think about something and then it magically appears in your life. And in this chapter of the book, I talk about the creation process, which is when I looked back and I took it apart and I'm like, how can I make this into a framework? What are the actual steps that I took in order to manifest? And what are the steps that I actively take now to manifest? This book
hmm
was created by this 5-step system. And it really starts with subconscious reprogramming. And I talk about that a lot in this chapter. And I know that we're both like really on the same page with this. So I love
hmm
jamming out about this with you. And I don't necessarily believe that like just seeing something in my mind is just going to make it appear. But I do believe that if I can feel those feelings and I can be in that moment that I'm imagining, actually feel them and vibrate at that level and feel that frequency and feel that gratitude and feel that excitement, feel that love and feel that energy, I'm basically training my brain to get really, really familiar with that feeling and that experience.
Mm.
And therefore, I'm going to be noticing the opportunities to get that thing way more prevalently. And my subconscious is actually guiding my actions. It's really the thing behind the behind the scenes that's really leading me towards what to do, what to say, where to go, which direction to choose. And if I already know in my mind that I've gotten this thing and it's mine already, the fear is less, the opportunities are
Mm.
brighter. That's why there's a neon sign on the cover of my book. It's like there's neon signs and lights pointing right in the way you need to go. And before you know it, you've created that thing because you're able to take action on it with less fear, with more clarity, with more confidence, with more belief. So it does start with seeing it and then believing that it's yours. And then most importantly, taking action to do it. And then in the book, I've got like a little, a little step 3.5 after the third step, which is to do it. And that's to do it again and again and again and again and again. Because I think
Yep.
that with manifesting and with attracting the life that you want, many a times I see people say to me in my DMs or on my questions that I get in my Instagram lives in the morning, they're like, Jen, I tried to manifest, but I didn't get it. Like it didn't happen. It didn't work out for me. And then they just give up. But when
Mhm.
I look back, every single thing that I've ever created was not on the first try. It was usually on like the fourth or the fifth or the sixth try. And usually it didn't end up manifesting in my life exactly the way that I thought that it was going
Mm.
to manifest, but it was way better and way more exciting and way cooler than I could have ever imagined. That if I just gave up, I would have never known that it was going to happen that way. And I always remember for myself, this is an important reminder that clarity follows action. And the more comfortable we can get with taking action and maybe messing up and trying again and being persistent and continuing to go, even when you get no, and continuing to hold the vision and continuing to hold the belief and going and taking different roads and different paths and figuring it out. First of all, the more you prove to yourself what you're capable of, how persistent you really can be. And second of all, then you uncover all of these amazing things that maybe you never even imagined would be there for you. And that's the beautiful thing about life and manifesting and creation and getting to where you want to be in traveling through time to the future.
Amazing. And you have so many. I'm not going to ruin it because people have to go get the book, which you can get anywhere right now where fine books are
Yeah.
sold, people.
Yes.
Um, you have so many really powerful examples in your own life of how, from manifesting Chris to where you live to, I mean, each and every one is so, to me, very inspiring in that it was intentional and it happened. And again, you didn't know exactly how. So can you pick one of those manifesting stories to share?
Oh yeah. I want to give you, all right. We'll talk about Chris. We'll talk about love because I'm thinking about your listener right now, and I think love stories are fun.
Yeah.
So I had already manifested my dream role in the Broadway national tour of The Wedding Singer. That was when I learned the power of this, and that did not happen immediately. That was like
Mhm.
you'll read the book. I like audition after not getting it, after getting the understudy and going and going and going and finally getting the moment. And it taught me all of the lessons that I needed to learn about manifestation. And then I forgot about manifesting because often that's what we do. When something works, we just throw it aside and we forget about it until we're forced to think about it again. And I had built up a successful business on my own and things were really good. And that was the problem. They were good. They weren't great. They weren't bad. Something was missing. And they don't tell you this about entrepreneurship when you start, but it can be unbelievably lonely. And I was really lonely and I was ready to find love. I had found real Jen, or at least found the beginnings of her. And I
Mhm.
started to realize, wow, I could find a partner. So I'm like, you know what? I know how to manifest. Let's do this. Let's manifest my partner. Because I was going on a lot of really shitty dates. And I was like, this is not
Mm.
working for me. So I decided to let go of all of the shoulds. This was the first step for me. And I had to stop seeing the man that everybody else saw for me. And this is really, really important because I know a lot of women make lists. And I used to make a list of the type of man that I wanted, but my list was not my list. It was my mom's list. It was my dad's list. It was my grandparents' list, my Jewish grandma's list, right?
Right.
It was everybody else's list. And I was looking at this list of, and no wonder I wasn't attracting the guy for me because this was not the guy that I wanted. So I
Mm.
allowed myself to really be with my man. Like I took a minute and I was just like, I'm with him. I'm happy. Who is he? And I wrote down that he was a 6 foot tall entrepreneur. He lived on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. He didn't drink alcohol. He had a beautiful child from a previous marriage. He had tattoos. He was funny. And what else? Like a bunch of stuff in the book. It's actually really crazy because I was like, these are all weird things that I think a lot of people wouldn't want. But if I could have my dream guy, oh, he's into personal development. He loves manifesting. Like we can talk about that all day. All right. So this is just Jen's guy. And this guy probably doesn't exist on the planet. But you know what? If he did, this would be my guy. So then I took a photo of the back of a guy's head and I put it in front of my desk, like on a board. I guess you could call it a vision board if you would like, or it was just a picture of the back of a guy's head and he was holding a baby and he was looking at the rainforest. It was like some ad. And I made sure that he didn't have a face because I didn't want to tie this person to anyone. I wanted him to be my guy. And so I started talking to this guy every day and having conversations with him. And this was how I was starting to believe that my love was with me all the time and starting to practice what it would feel like to totally receive love from this person. So I would be like, good morning, my love. I'm so excited to meet you. If you see me, I'm wearing my black tank top. Come find me. Come say hi. I can't wait. And I was like, we're going to be a power couple. We're going to build an empire together. I love you so much. I can't wait to love you. Can't wait to hold you. And then there was a second piece of the whole manifesting puzzle. Me and this vision board guy, we're going to live in this very specific building that I was obsessed with in Manhattan. And when I was a personal trainer, I would train people at this building. And I would always walk into the building and I would tell the doorman every day I would walk in, like, you know, I'm going to live here one day. Get ready. You're going to see me all the time. I'm going to live here. And they'd be like, okay, go to the gym. And I'm like, no, I'm going to live here. And we were going to live there together. And I would write him letters and I would go on walks through New York City, pretending I was walking with my man. And what this did, Terri, is this made every bad date not so bad. Because when I would go on a date with the wrong guy, I would just be like, oh, okay, you're not the guy. Like I wouldn't get anxious. I wouldn't get upset because I knew that I could go home and talk to my fake guy, which is so ridiculous. But it gave me hope because I believed that he was out there looking for me. And it made me notice the wrong things way quicker. Like, oh, no, that's not you. And then it made me notice the right things and be able to receive the right things way quicker because I had been preparing for him. I think that if I would have met Chris before I did all this work, maybe I would have pushed him away. Maybe I would have been ready to receive him. And the way that this worked out was I actually ended up going back to a gym that I got fired from when I started building my own business. They fired me. And I walked back in there because my word of the year was connection. And I knew I needed to connect with more people. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start working out at this gym again. I think there's someone here that I need to meet. I bump into an ex-boyfriend. The ex-boyfriend says to me, you should probably meet this guy. He's known as the super connector. So maybe he could help you with your business. And I'm like, oh, my word of the year is connection. Maybe I should meet the super connector guy. I sit on a park bench in Central Park waiting to meet this super connector guy. He walks up to me, Chris Winfield. He pulls down his sunglasses. He looks at me. He goes, who's luckier than us? He did not know. I did not know. I think it was a pickup line. No one knew how lucky we were in that moment.
Right.
But we walked around the park for 5 hours. He took me to Barnes & Noble and we bought all these self-help books. And I left and I was like, what just happened? And then I'll skip to the rest of the story. Obviously, Chris and I fell in love and he was the 6 foot tall entrepreneur. He has a beautiful 14-year-old daughter. Like he doesn't drink. He's got tattoos, the whole gamut. When we moved into our dream apartment, we did not move into this apartment because Chris was really rich and he could move me into this apartment. We both helped each other build each other's businesses to a point where we became unbelievably successful on our own. We came together and we decided to become partners in business and build Super Connector Media. And we got to a place where we're like, okay, let's move in together. And I was like, we have to get my dream apartment. And we moved into that building, the very building that I said. And we moved our boxes in and I said, told you guys, told you. Here I am.
I'm back. Now I'm staying.
And then I want everyone that's listening to this, if you're listening to this, please send me a DM to get this photo. Chris, when we were moving in, Chris was holding my dog, Dexter, my Maltese. And he was looking out the window. And I'm looking at him. And I'm like, that looks so familiar. And I took a snapshot of him. And I put it next to the vision board guy picture because the vision board guy was holding a baby. And he was looking out at the rainforest. And I put it next to it. And I was like, Jen's version of the rainforest baby was like my Maltese in New York City. And this guy standing there holding my dog. It was crazy.
Wow.
Crazy, but not crazy.
That's amazing. Right. No, as my friend Lara would say, oh, you know, Lara, energy worker Lara, she would say, crazy cool.
Crazy cool.
Right. something's crazy cool. Like where you
Crazy
go,
cool.
it's so synchrotastic, but you know this, Jen, because you have lived this. And I feel like you've laid this out for us so accessibly in this book. What I loved about the book is that it's really entertaining because you have lived an interesting and fun life. But I love that everything is accessible. It's step by step. If someone wants to change what's happening in their lives, you can decide what is the first step that you want to take, but you have it in this book. So I have two last questions for you.
Okay.
And you guys, the book is out right now. It's called Be Seen by Jen Gottlieb. Find your voice, build your brand, and live your dream. And if you're watching this on YouTube, it looks just like that neon light that says Be Seen. I love it. Okay, so two questions. The last one about the book is, can you explain the confidence continuum? Because I'm interested in my audience hearing about that. And then I have another question for you.
Okay. So I'm going to explain the confidence continuum with an example so that everyone can visualize it. And I think it's an example that everyone will also, if you are building a brand and you're online and you're being seen, you're going to like the story. So there are 6 C's of the confidence continuum. Find them out in the book. But the thing that I really, really want you to know about is how confidence is created and how it's built over time. And it's not something that everybody's just magically like, oh, I'm confident now. You can build it. Even the most introverted, not confident person can build confidence over time. So let's take a task that we're afraid to do, that we're not confident in. I'm going to use the example of going live on social media, because when I first started becoming real Jen and having to be seen as me and not heavy metal Jennifer or whatever else other costume or character I was putting on, I was like, crap, I got to go live on social media. I got to start talking to people. I have to start talking about what I do. And I was so petrified to let the world see me. I was so scared. I would sit there in front of the camera, in front of that button, and like debate for like hours. Like, should I press it? And I know if you are listening to this and you're building a brand online, you know you do this too. Do I look okay? Is anybody going to show up? I'll do it later. I'll do it in 5 minutes. Like, it would take me all day to get to do this. Okay. So the first step of the confidence continuum flowchart is to take that first action with fear there anyway. You're going to be petrified. You're going to be afraid. But one thing that I promise you is that time doesn't stop and discomfort's only temporary. That fear is only going to be that scary that first time. And then before you know it, you're going to end up in your bed that night. It's only going to be temporary. It's only going to be there for a second. So you're going to put your arm around fear. You're like, all right, fear, come along for the ride. We're just going to do the hard thing, because I'm the type of person that can do hard things and I'm going to feel so good about myself after.
Yep.
You take action. You press go live. Okay. You do it. That's the first step. Take action. Then all of a sudden you're done. You did the live. Maybe it was 3 minutes. Maybe 2 people showed up. Oh my God, you're done. You did it. Celebrate that. You did it. Okay. You did it. Oh my gosh, that's a little win, a micro win. So you've got the win because you did it. Now, motivation is not created by some motivation fairy that comes and bops you on the head and says you're motivated. Motivation comes from winning, from doing the hard thing, getting that little dopamine hit from winning, like, oh, I did it, yay. And then you can take action again with a little bit more momentum and more motivation. So then the next day comes. So now you've had your action step, your little win, and now you're a little bit more confident than yesterday. Maybe not a ton more, but maybe a little bit more, because you know about the unknown. You've taken away the power that fear has over you. So, okay. So then you press go live again the second day. A little bit more confidence. Now you talk for like 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes. And now like 6 people join. Whoa, okay. And then after you're done, all of a sudden you get a DM from somebody and they're like, wow, I loved that live. Thank you so much. I would love to talk to you about working with you. That's a big win. So you got your action, your little win, your momentum. You take action again. Oh my God, you get a big win. Oh, that's cool. Wait, going live actually helps me get clients? What? I'm going to do this again. So then you have even more confidence and you go and you take action again. You're like, here we go. Now we're going to go live for 10 minutes, because there's way more that happens on the other side of this confidence or this fear and this difficult moment that's way more worth it than any kind of fear or discomfort that I felt in the beginning. And then what happens? Then you got momentum. And then now, this is literally my story. I go live every single morning with no makeup on. Every single day I put my makeup on and I go live. And I was petrified in the beginning, but because I did that cycle over and over and over again, I am now completely confident with going live. And that's the confidence continuum. That's how it works for anything.
It's so true. I love that. And I love the thing that you said that really speaks to me is celebrating the small win. Because if you're an all or nothing type A overachieving type person, we can really like rain on our own parade by minimizing it, by being like, yeah, but there was only, rather than exactly what you said. This is amazing. Good for you. You did it. This now creates the feel good hormones. This now makes us go, okay, now I can do it again. So I love that. All right, my last question for you, Jen Gottlieb, is I ask all my people personally, what has been your most challenging boundary struggle and
Ooh,
how did you overcome it if you have?
I have boundary struggles every day. My most challenging boundary struggle, would probably be all right, we'll go there. The family boundary struggles. I think a lot of people deal with the family boundary struggles. I have the most amazing family in the entire world. I really, really, really do. But as I've gotten older and as I've grown up, and I've really had to, like, I'll give you an example, my wedding. So I got married
Mhm.
in December, and I made a really conscious decision to not have a massive wedding where I was inviting all the cousins and all the aunts and all the uncles, because I wanted to have a wedding where it was full of people that knew me in the moment and that I was gonna build a future with. And I I knew that, like, the cousins, the aunts, the uncles that I hadn't spoken to in 5, 10 years, those were the invites that I should invite to my wedding, and that, like,
Right.
I owed it to them, even though we never speak to each other that often, and they're
Right.
wonderful people, but we just don't really have a relationship, and they probably wouldn't continue to be in my life afterwards. So I made a really conscious decision and set a really, really hard boundary with this, and I said to my
Mhm.
family, I said, "The only people that are gonna be at my wedding are the people that I talk to on a daily basis." And that means that all of the cousins and aunts and uncles and those people, they're not gonna be invited, and that was really difficult for me to say. It
Mhm.
really was. It was really difficult for me to do that because I was like, "Oh, like, what are people gonna think? And then this
Yeah.
person's gonna be upset." But I set that boundary. It was challenging. I said it. And I
Yep.
had a wedding with 70 people there, and every single one of those people I would still talk to this day, go out to dinner with. We like, I was so happy with that decision. And
Yep.
nobody was upset with me. Everybody respected the boundary. Everyone was okay with it, and we had a fabulous time. And I was really proud of myself for setting that boundary.
That is amazing. It's like a perfect example of the difficult family boundaries of like what is other people's expectations, but the fact that you did what was right for you to do and actually really speaks well of your family that
Yeah.
there was respect there, that they were able to respect that it was your decision, which is amazing. So you guys, the book itself right here, if you're watching, it is Be Seen right there by Jen Gottlieb. Find your voice, build your brand, live your dream. You can get it. It dropped 2 days ago. You can get it anywhere fine books are sold. Thank you so much, Jen, for coming on. I had so much fun. I love you. I love the work that you're doing. To be continued.
Yes, this was so much fun. Thank you for having me.